All right, look at this messy area. This is my stand-up desk with no drawers, so I can't store stuff in it. I just leave stuff on the ground. And I've got my motorcycle closet here, which I just shoved my gear in here, and not too organized about it. I don't have a lot of options. But yeah, I could do a better job. And I will by building a organizer with this wood. Now, I have very little experience, and not too long ago I had no experience. So I'm just going to show you how easy this can be. Or it could be a disaster. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but by the end of the video we should see. So this was my first project, was this pantry. And this is a pretty simple job, so I thought let's give it a try. So all I had to do was make these support boards here and then just lay this board across. So pretty simple. And it relatively was, but this is where I learned that the walls aren't straight and the corners can be difficult as well. So this job I learned a lot with, and that's where you're going to do your learning, is just by starting and doing it. So I mean, just like learning to ride, it starts off pretty rough and just gets better. So this is a good first project to do, but if you want to just go for it, that's fine too. It's still the same amount of learning, just might be a little bit more stressful. So after the first project, I was feeling pretty confident, so I thought I'd attempt this closet. So it's just a bunch of wire frame shelves before, but I want something more custom to fit the toolbox, have a ladder pocket, and different varying shelf heights, and some higher up shelves as well that I could put some stuff on. Just gonna do a shameless plug of my books up there. Now back to this closet. So learned a lot with this project. Took me 4 times as long. The walls aren't straight. Corners are difficult to deal with. So I was putting this together, taking it apart, just because little things were coming up with the measurements. So, I mean, that shelf down there is slightly smaller than the shelves up here just because of the way the walls are. My name's Lee Ridefar. I ride motorcycles. I teach people how to ride motorcycles, and I'll try and teach you this with what I've learned. Now, the materials you'll need for a closet. This is about $300 worth of wood. Now, these panels here, each one of these is $30. And these were $100. I got 2 of these panels. This was $100 each. Now these type of panels cost more. You can get giant sheets of wood. Those cost less, but you need 2 people to move them. More cumbersome and more cutting. And so one thing I learned from my first 2 projects was using those big sheets, a lot of cutting. Things can get a little bit interesting if your cuts aren't perfect. So I'm going to try using the smaller boards, but it did cost more. I also needed the closet rod, so I got this. This was $20. You just cut that to what you need, and a couple of other little things, like it's edge banding. So I'm going to cover up the screw holes with this. It just matches the wood. So all in all, I'm in this for about $360. Now you're going to need to do some planning. So do a lot of measurements, get the dimensions of the closet, and even get dimensions of stuff you're going to put in there so you can size the shelves. And then once you have that, you can start designing it. And you know, nothing's set in stone, you're just kind of playing around with it. So I just sort of drew out how I want it to go. You know, originally I wanted shelves on this side and this side with the jackets hanging in the middle, but there's not enough room to do that. And I did that by just pretending that they were already there. So draw it out, and then you can visualize it. When you can visualize things, you definitely can help you see what you're doing better. But a word of warning, once you start putting it together, you might want to change it again. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just all part of the process, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So this was a great website to help with the project, and it's kind of fun. It's cutlistoptimizer.com. So you put your sheets of wood in here, then all the cuts you need to make up here, hit calculate, and then it'll tell you exactly the cuts you need to make for minimal waste. And so if you want to use a few more boards, you can do that, or you can make your cuts a little bit different and save on the amount of boards that you want to make. So great website. Now, I don't have a lot of space and I didn't have a lot of tools, so I had to buy this in order to do this project. So you don't need much. One thing that frustrated me with the other videos out there is all the tools they had. They had a big workshop and all this space. I live in a condo. I don't have much room to do this. So I needed to buy tools and I need to make use of the space that I have. So what you absolutely need to have is a circular saw. So one of these things. Now these things can be kind of scary, but hey, if you're a motorcycle rider, you're used to strapping yourself to an engine, 2 wheels, and riding at high speeds through traffic. So you should be able to handle the one-wheeled metal wheel of injury, blood, and dismemberment. But I'll show you how to use it safely too. It's scary, it's loud, you want to wear protection to protect your ears, but totally manageable. What's also really handy are these clamps. Now these keeps the wood in place when you're cutting it and when you're setting it up. Think of this as a second and third set of hands. Absolutely necessary to have these, and they can be pretty cheap. I think I saw a set of 4 of these clamps with 2 simple clamps for 30 bucks. So pretty good deal, but I'm used on Craigslist. Optional would be a planer. Now I bought this tool because when I was cutting the boards, they were all the same, but they're a little bit off. So this planer tool, which I'll show later, just shaves off a small amount, like a millimeter or a very small amount of an inch. So it's a really handy tool to have this, not required, but your cuts have to be extra perfect if you don't have a planer tool. So a couple $100 in tools, and things that help along. You definitely need, and you can keep them forever. Right? If the project went awful for you, you just sell it. So I just wanted to say a quick word about the white boards I used for my first 2 closets. This was great because they came white and ready to go. But as I learned that when I was cutting it, it sort of chipped the edges there. So it didn't have a clean edge like it came with. So that was kind of frustrating. So that's something I learned, is this white melamine board is great, but you're actually better off to just buy wooden boards and paint them. It's going to be cleaner, but it's a lot more work. So it's kind of your choice. Less work, but not as perfect, or more work and should be perfect. Here is my setup. Got the board resting on the 2 supports there. Definitely handy to have those. If you don't have them, use a chair. That's fine. I have them clamped down to it, so when I cut it, it's not moving around. You really want these. These are super handy to have. A lot of measuring, so make sure you measure a lot. Measure once, go to Home Depot twice. So measure 3, 4, 5 times. Make absolutely sure. Got my pencil, and I'm just gonna, draw a line on what I have to cut here. Make sure it's super straight. So I got lots of pencil marks. That looks about right. So there I got my cut line. Now this board here, I'm gonna clamp down because that's going to make sure I run a nice straight cut. So you can't freehand this. It'll be pretty straight, but it won't be perfect. You've got to have the straightest cut possible. This $2 piece of board and some clamps, make sure that it's nice and straight. Now when using this, you want to stand beside it. You don't want to stand here in case it kicks back at you and does awful things to you. So stand beside it. Wear your hearing protection and definitely some eye protection. If you don't have the eye protection, you can engage your safety squint and just keep those big chunks of sawdust out of your eyes. It's terrible advice. No, wear at least some glasses. If you don't have those, you're just gonna have to get some. Or you can improvise. Okay, I got my first piece ready to go. I need 3 of these, so I'm just going to use this to measure out my next one. Just line it up. There we go. And then just run my pencil. Done. That'll be right above where the jackets go. So here is why I'm going to use a planer tool. It is optional, but you can see that my 3 shelves, there's about 1 millimeter of difference between them. So when I go to put them on, they'll fit, but it won't be as perfect as it could be. So yeah, we got 1 millimeter difference here. And then over here, we got 1 millimeter of difference. So I want to try and make these as close to the same as possible. So that's why I'm going to use the planer. All right, so we can see how much smoother that is. So that's fantastic. Did do a bit of damage here, but that's not bad. We can put this side of it, of the shelves in the corner where no one can see it. I've got the 2 panels ready to go, so I'm going to put a shelf in between these 2, but I need to make some drill holes for the screws. So I've got this amazing tool called a Countersink, and this is just going to make a perfect hole for me to screw into versus me trying to just put the screw in there. And I'll show you exactly why this tool is amazing. All right, here is what it does. There we go. Perfect. Without it, it gets a little tricky. It doesn't want to go in as easy. There we go. And now we will use the Countersink. Much easier. So I took my level and made a very straight line and then marked 3 different points where the screw holes are going to be. And now I can make those. Okay, things are getting pretty busy in here with my lack of space. So I've got the shelves set up using the clamps to help out. Love these things. I've also took a slice off the shelf there just so it matches up with the other piece. So That should look good. I've got the screw holes here, so they are ready to go along the line. And we'll just put the next one in. Done. Now, before I was setting all this up, I was making sure to use that level on every possible surface on here just to make sure it is all good to go. And it is, so I'll finish screwing up this side and I'll do the other side. All right, here is the first section. It's just upside down. So we're gonna go put it in the closet now. And the reason why it's upside down is part of it is sitting on the baseboard here. Now, I could have taken this baseboard out and then cut it right around there, and then it could just slide in, but that's too much work. Just have it sit on the baseboard, done. Nobody can see in the back there anyway. All right, that shelf looks pretty level. And there we go. There is the first piece of the closet ready to go, nice and level. Now we're gonna get the top shelf. All right, so I used the stud finder for the anchor point here. So that's right into the wall. So that thing is not going anywhere. And now I could put the top shelf on. So I got my top shelf and I'm just gonna screw an anchor right down into there, securing that in place. And I'll get a support right there because that is too long to leave just like that. Okay, we've got the support for the left side of the shelf. So the top shelf is done. And we'll see how level that is. Pretty good. We're still within the line. It's not perfect, but it's pretty tough to get everything perfect. Now, let's work on this. I'm down to my last shelf here. So I'm gonna bring this shelf up here and get a clamp going to help me out. And then get my trusty level. Make sure we get everything just perfect. So that's gonna help me out. Good. Okay, so I'm gonna make my first drill mark here. Right, the screw, and then once I have this in, I'll be good to go. Perfect. Okay, so now I just got to do that for all the way down. There we go. Excellent. Okay, so I got my coat rack in. We got the other side, so that is the last thing I need to do. Done. So that is the closet. It's not bad. Time commitment wasn't too bad. I got it mostly straight. There, that's good enough. And down here looks okay as well. Just a little bit off, but it is difficult to get that perfect straight. Now, this is what I mean by these gaps. So there's a good gap right there, but if you just come along here, that gap pretty much disappears, and that's because of the wall. And so that's what can make this really, really challenging. If you're trying to push everything up against the wall, it's probably not going to work. Now, I did make some mistakes with this, so it's not perfect. When I was building this part outside the closet, I just missed my measurement a bit, and I had to put a little spacer piece in there in order to get this pretty straight up there. So that was a bit of a mistake, but easily corrected. I was able to get, all these lined up quite nicely. So that worked out really well. And so now all I have to do is put stuff on it. Just some other things we can do here is we can cover up the screw holes with some edge banding, or just to sort of match the wood if you don't like the black holes left by the screw. You can also lightly sand the edges to make sure there's no splinters. Don't want too many splinters in my helmet while I'm riding. And then make sure to get the cat's approval. Sprocket, what do you think? Still thinking about it? All right, well, let me know later. And I am done. This area is all cleaned up and organized. And I've loaded the closet up with my motorcycle stuff and some other stuff as well. So there we have it. I've got my motorcycle pants up there, the rain gear, bicycle helmet, motorcycle helmet, tank bag, bicycle storage, laptop, power tools, more storage, spot for my boots, back protectors underneath there, jackets here. Everything is good to go, and I did it all in this space here and out here. So there you have it. That's the closet. I built it in this small amount of space in here and that small amount of patio space out there. It just takes your effort, willingness to learn, and you'll make it happen. Now this will change, like whatever you draw out, and then when you start building it, things kind of change and you make some realizations. So that's part of the whole learning process. Now, one thing I probably will do when the weather gets nicer is I'm going to add a stain, or I'll paint it white. With the unfinished wood, wet motorcycle gear is probably going to warp some of the boards or sort of ruin some of the wood a bit. So I should paint it or stain it or do something when the weather is nicer. Other than that though, I love it. It's way better, way more functional, more storage space. So I'm very happy with it. So show me your projects. If you have any questions, put it in the comments below. If you want to support this in any way or support me, buy my books. I also want to mention where I learned most of this from, and it was another YouTube channel called diyforknuckleheads. And those videos were fantastic. So big shout out to Uncle Knackers. Thanks very much. And I got a dad joke for you. Why does a motorcycle need a kickstand to hold itself up? Because it's too tired. Sprocket, still have an opinion? No opinion on the new shelves? No? Okay, good chat. Let me know when you do.